Hey everybody, how are you today? Here we are. Does it resonate with you? And today we're going to talk about our favorite time of the year. And anybody, I think, in the metaphysical world, it's your favorite time of the year.
Hmm.
And it's Halloween, or what is it?
All Saints Day.
Saints Day, All Hallows Eve, Dia
And
de
then
los
the Celtic
Muertos.
one is what is this? So Samhain?
Oh, Samhain.
Soen, thank you. There.
Samhain. Yeah.
Soen.
I don't. Now I only just recently learned how to pronounce that.
Yeah.
So
Well, I just did about 2 seconds ago. So
there you go. So anyway, so that's what we're going to talk about today because this is the last episode before we hit Halloween, which is, on Wednesday next week. Um and I think that there's a lot of different places that we can talk about, but one of the things that I really love and I really do believe, because a lot of us say how at this time of year the veil thins, and I hear it all over the place. The veil is thinning, the veil
yes.
is thinning, and I believe that because I have this pattern in my life, and things come through in October. Now, I was talking to our friend Lisa, the astrologer, and
Yeah.
so there's some action in my chart that kind of speaks to this a little bit as well, and solar returns and what have you. But typically things get sort of conceptualized for me in October. They
Hmm.
get kind of finalized or brought to the surface in December, and then in March sort of put out into the world. And I really believe that because they come through to me, like they download or whatever words you want to use
Hmm.
in October, it's because the veil is thin.
I'm finding it easier to meditate this month.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I was just so like, June and July and August, I put it off a little bit or I do it and it's just a couple minutes. And then the last like 2 or 3 weeks, it's been like just really easy to get into that vibe, to spend a good half hour. And I think that may be related. The veil is thinning.
That could be. Now, I personally think I've noticed it. For me, I don't remember dreams like, through the night when I'm
Mhm.
sleeping. The place that I dream, or the place that I remember dreams. A lot of people say they don't dream because they don't remember, but I don't. I think we all dream.
We all dream. Yep.
Some of us just don't remember. The place that I do remember is that place between sleep and awake,
Hmm.
that sort of twilight place. And so I believe in that moment, in those moments, you're connecting to some kind of energy and you're interpreting it with things that have happened to you that are sort of floating around in your brain. So uh, things come through and are a little bit bizarre, from
Yep.
time to time. But there's always, while I'm not huge on, oh, I saw a peacock run past in my dream. What does that mean? I'm not huge on that.
Yeah. The whole the symbology dictionaries.
Right.
Right.
Of dreaming, especially.
Right.
But that, I think, mostly because I don't remember dreams while I sleep. It's really just in this sort of twilight place. But what I've noticed is that if I pay attention and I give it some thought, it brings things to my attention that I should be paying attention to.
That's good.
Um, so, if it like, for example, if it focuses in some strange way on my husband, strange, he is strange and I'm strange, so it's all good. But you know what I mean? Like, it's out of the ordinary, I guess, is a better way to put it.
Right.
Then, it's like a call for me to check out what's happening or what's going on, and
Right.
usually I will find some kind of appointment snafu or some kind of shenanigans going on
You know what
that
that
needs
is?
to be addressed.
It's like it's a post-it note from spirit.
Yeah, right, exactly. And one that's not written in English,
Right. You gotta kind of
which, you know,
it's just in messy handwriting. You gotta just figure it out.
yeah, well, I'm going to tell you what, just as a small aside, because, the whole they don't teach cursive in school thing.
Yep.
And they were, I was watching a show and they were talking about it. The there is somebody that I work for, we'll just put it that way, and he will write sticky notes, and put them on the files. I swear sometimes I have to take a picture of it and send it to him and say, what
What
does
the?
this say? Like, I literally cannot figure it out.
Wow.
So it's kind of like those sticky notes. It's kind of exactly like that. Like,
Right.
so then I have to, like, I pick out the pieces that seem to be more forward.
Hmm.
Um, that's the only way I can really think to put it. Like the ones that kind of stick out,
Yeah.
and then I kind of think through them, and have my little conversations. What's the deal with that? What is that all about? You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So will that happen still throughout the year? I don't know, because I really just noticed it in the last couple of 2-3 weeks. Weirdo stuff, some of it, like just bizarre.
So,
Um,
um, uh, as the veil is thinning, we're getting more vivid dreams and more, yeah, I guess more vivid dreams, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they say. I mean, to me, the veil is thinning means we're closer to the etheric, right?
Yes. Yep.
We're closer to the etheric, and I think that because the etheric is 100% energy, right? That in the etheric world, nobody speaks English,
Right. It's all
right?
it's all a
It's all
base,
energy.
all energy. Yep.
Right.
Pure
It's all
thought.
energy. So when you connect to it as a physical human being, you use all the little bits and bobs of information that's available to you to translate what you're sensing. And so if the energy is more intense and it is closer to you, it makes perfect sense to me that the dreams would be more vivid,
Hmm.
because you don't have to work as hard to get them to come through.
Yeah.
Right? Like people say, do you dream in color? I don't know. I have no idea. Like I can't, even the dreams that I know, like I can remember little bits and pieces of it. I can't say it was in black and white, but I also can't say it was in color. It's kind of
Hmm.
weird, right? Like,
Right. It was in energy.
yeah, yeah, right. Like it was in energy. So I don't know, we have um Halloween, Halloween, All Hallows Eve,
Hmm.
right? But do you know the origin of Halloween itself? I mean, what the
Yes. So, November 1, so the Catholic Church has different
oh,
days throughout the
naturally.
year, to honor different saints, right? And so there's like St. Patrick's Day, there's St. Paul's Day. So throughout the year, there are different Sundays or different days of the year that are for particular saints. November 1 was All Saints Day, so that any of the saints that didn't get their own day would be remembered, and yeah, would be remembered on All Saints Day. So the day before that, or the night before that, was All Saints Eve or All Hallows Eve. And so the word Halloween just became an amalgamation or a contraction of All Hallows Eve. So what the
Okay.
tradition came out to be was that because all the saints were present on November 1, all the spirits and evil were trying to cause as much havoc as possible the night before, because they were like, everybody out of the pool on November 1. So the whole idea of wearing costumes was to scare away the evil spirits. And of course, that, one tradition just built on another, until you have the, wholly and completely commercialized global holiday of modern world Halloween.
Well, I mean, completely commercialized holiday. What have we not completely commercialized, right?
Yeah.
But so a couple of things while you were talking, I just kind of wanted to connect to, and so the ancient Celtic festivals of Samhain, a pagan religious celebration, so also roots in religion,
Yep.
to welcome the harvest, which That makes sense to
Yep,
me.
that's what Samhain is, the harvest festival.
Right at the end of summer, where people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts.
Yep.
Okay. So, I mean, it's really funny. Like, I don't know, if you go backwards, right? You go backwards into these traditions, the traditions of this day of the year. You go backwards into the traditions of Christmas, or you go over to Europe and you see Krampus, or like people's fascination with like the evil or the scary or the frightening seems to be really, really prevalent to me.
Yeah.
In all of these things,
Yep,
like,
for sure.
I mean, have you ever seen and I haven't seen them in a while, but have you ever seen those pictures of like Halloween costumes from the 1800s or like the
Yes.
early 90s, and
They're
they're
really,
freaky.
really frightening. Yep.
Like, I mean, and it's little kids dressed like
Yeah.
we know there's no Casper the Friendly Ghost with that god awful plastic
Yeah.
that
Plastic
plastic
mask.
mask that by the time you could actually see through it, the eyes were like this big because you had to cut, because they never lined up with the eyes on your
I
face.
remember doing that. Yes. Or the thing
And
would fog up and your whole face was wet by the end of the.
oh yes, 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 absolutely. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. And it had the little tie in the back.
Yep.
And then you put your jacket on. By the time they'd wrench you into it with the jacket and everything else, the pants would rip in the. Oh my gosh.
Good old days. Boy, I tell you.
So what's the deal then with candy for Halloween? Do you know that one?
Right. Let's see. I'm Googling.
Wait, candy companies needed an excuse to market their product in the fall, so they started telling consumers that they needed to start handing out candy during Halloween. The companies created more miniature versions of their products, and adults were happy that they no longer had to bake treats.
Wow.
Oh, actually, but they're what they actually this one says children dressing in costume and going door to door for treats is a relatively modern tradition, but its origins can be traced to the Celts and even a long lost Christmas tradition.
I do remember the candy being handed out at Christmas in one of the European countries. That was a real big deal. What I'm seeing here is that there was a holiday that was proposed for. It was called Candy Day, the second Saturday in October, and then that renamed Sweetest Day, but the candy thing got moved to Halloween.
Uh, oh my God. Well, now wait a minute. There's a National Candy Day, which is Saturday, November 4th.
Okay.
All right. I mean, John, I think that we should just decide right now to make a Does It Resonate With You Day.
Did you know that there is a registry where you can register your annual holiday, and every year I believe it's a federal agency votes internally on 2 or 3 days to add to that calendar to put on the national registry.
All right. Well, we'll have to give that some thought off the air and see if we can come up with something really good, something that they'd want to vote on.
How about Woo Woo Day?
Yeah, National Woo Woo Day. I like it.
Everybody gets a candle, a tarot deck, and gets a Reiki session.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds like a lot of work.
Right. I'll just stay home and meditate.
Yeah, there you go. Wow. Oh my gosh, that's just crazy. So Interesting. Now, did we have the conversation here on the show where I was talking about? Yeah, I think it was when Belle was on, and we were talking about the cemetery and how she said her son would go past the cemetery and he didn't like it.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yep.
he's very connected. He can see spirits. So I wonder, because that if you look at Dia de los Muertos,
Hmm.
right,
Yep.
the Mexican holiday,
Yep.
and that's about celebrating the dead. That's not about fearing the ghosts. It seems to me like when you look at those folks, they're really hoping that their loved ones will show up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they're
That's a good
really
point.
hoping they'll show up, or they'll send a sign or
Yep.
put out the candle or whatever. And I think it's really interesting because well, you and I sort of walk in similar circles,
Hmm.
not necessarily the same, but these kind of big circles that are filled with um
Light workers.
let's say metaphysical people.
Sure. Yep.
uh, but what's amazing to me is how often you see these people say, "Oh, I heard something come through on my radio and it just is totally spooky and I can't deal." Or, I think I saw a ghost. Oh my God. Like how fearful we are. And I think that we've been sort of, well, first of all, I think there's a lot of people that can communicate with spirits, earthbounds,
Yep.
if you will, when they're small. And if they're in kind of any religious household, it is frightened out of them.
Yep.
We don't do that. That's not a
Right.
good thing.
Right.
You don't do that, right?
Right.
So,
Or almost tease out of them like, no, you didn't. Whatever you saw, you must have imagined it because that can't happen.
right, it can happen. So let's take you to the psychiatrist or something,
Right.
right?
Right. Yep.
So I mean, it's no wonder that we have a fear of those things. I personally don't. I never did. Um, I mean, I was always more afraid of, although I was terrorized by the world ending in the 80s, but
Yeah.
that's another story altogether. But I mean, I've always been more afraid of, um, stupid things, drunk drivers, and
Right.
you know what I
Real
mean? Like,
physical crazy,
right,
not
exactly.
metaphysical.
Because I think that physical things are the things that can hurt you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, you're afraid of a ghost. Why? Why is a person afraid of a ghost?
You know what? I mean, modern times now, I think a lot of it we can blame on some of those ghost hunter and media shows, right?
Oh, yeah.
Some of those shows actually those shows are pretty cool uh, in some ways because the psychic who's actually the celebrity of the show really does connect with those energies and but they dramatize
Some of
it.
them do.
Yeah,
Some of them do. Yeah.
they dramatize it such that you've got they add the scary music, they add the the technician who's shaking with their instrument, right? um
Right.
and
Right. I mean, yeah, because wow, let's let's just
let's dig
indulge
into
that
that.
one. Let's just indulge that one for a minute because I watched on YouTube. I Kelly Osbourne has now embraced her mediumship tendencies, and well,
Sweet.
uh, Jack Osbourne, the son,
Yep.
has that show, right? Whatever that I don't
I
remember
don't
the
know the
name of
show,
the
but
show,
I know about it.
but
Yes.
I mean, and his show is really fear, like, oh, let me find these things, scary things for you to be afraid of. And so I watched this little clip, and I don't know where they were. They were in some place where like some some antique place, not an antique store, but some old building, some maybe a factory or something, and she's sitting there, and I I guess you see these people and they go in and, oh, I'm afraid, or does anybody want to talk to us, or things like those
Right.
things, right?
Right. Right. Yep.
Now, for one thing, it just seems to me like if you don't have a handle on your filter and you go in to do these kind of things, you're going to connect to energy. You're definitely going to be afraid. right? I don't get afraid. Now, I will say that there was a time I went to we have actually, I don't know, did I ever tell you about the Dole Mansion? And it's in Crystal Lake,
I don't think
here in
so.
Crystal Lake. And it was at one time used by Ringling Brothers Circus as like a compound. It's a huge building with small rooms with, you know, what do they call that? A dormitory.
Dorms, yep.
Yeah, like so it has there's a big theater. Like if you looked up Dole Mansion, you'd be able to kind of see it and get an
Okay.
idea of what I'm talking about. Anyway, I was there one time and there's a home that I was there on a Halloween, and we got to go look around with my friend Joe Diamond, the mind reader. And we got to the top of the stairs, and all of a sudden I was like, I couldn't breathe.
Okay.
And I was like, "Ooh, that's interesting."
Yeah.
So I had to, like I just stood, I put my hand on my chest to allow my lungs to sort of sort themselves out.
Hmm.
What I believe is the case is there must have been somebody there that either passed from pneumonia or, so it was definitely breath.
Yep.
And it was not out of breath from the stairs, but it was definitely like,
yeah, you kind of channeled that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that if I'd been anybody else, I would have flipped my wig and been scared to death. And
right.
Joe saw me standing, and he's like, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I just need to, balance my energy out a little bit because obviously there's something here, right?"
Wow.
But that is a reaction to an energetic signature.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's
yeah.
not.
Val mentions that when she channels certain, spirits from the other side. If they died of a heart attack, she'll feel it in her chest, or if they had an injury, she'll feel it.
Right. And I mean, I'll do that when I work on somebody. It'll happen.
Sweet.
Like a live person, even.
Yep.
And I always, in my mind, it's always okay. I get it. Now you can stop that. Because it's a. I mean, it's a way for you if you're connecting with the energy of somebody. You're doing that with the intention of figuring out what's happening or what's going on with them. So, it's like, okay, I get it. Now you can stop that, right? And it stops.
Yes.
Although, I mean, this is just a little something, but it is kind of funny, actually. I don't think I've ever told this story. When I first was learning energy work, and I was working on my niece, who actually was in a car accident quite some years ago, and she had damage to one of her lungs. She still suffers with that from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
So we had been doing a remote healing session on a woman who had really serious lung issues from smoking. And so when we came out of there, my niece, because she's got lung issues herself, was actually really suffering kind of,
wow.
I mean, and again, it was not like it was going to kill her. It's, what I mean? But she was very uncomfortable, and she could feel the, the residual. So she got on the table, and we're working on her, and I put my hands on her ankles. And I saw her lungs. Now, I forgot to preface this by saying, have you ever seen the book, The Medical Medium?
Yes, that's a cool book.
I opened the book, open the book just like so, and I was like, oh, so you can see inside people's lungs. No, thank you. I'm out. Not interested. Don't want to see inside anybody's, and it literally said lungs. So that was, I don't know, I was interested in everything at the time because I didn't know what I was interested in.
Sure.
So I don't know, that might have been a month before or whatever. I put my hands on her ankles. We were getting ready to work. And all of a sudden I see this picture, and it's of her lungs, but they're drawn like a cartoon.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, and I can hear, this guy behind me giggling like, oh, you said you didn't want to see it, but we're going to show you anyway. They showed it to me in a cartoon, and I will never forget that. Like, okay, I can handle that. Like, I don't want to see the real thing, but if something you need to show me, because I was known at the time as the lung scrubber. Like, that whatever it is that I can do energetically, I can go in, and I mean literally like scrub.
Sweet.
And so energy work is fun. It
Yeah,
just really is.
I
But
agree.
but I digress now. So the idea is that if you can understand that you are in control, then you really don't need to be afraid. I don't believe in evil spirits. I don't believe there are ghosts that are out there to get you. But
Right.
I do believe in bored ghosts.
That want to create a little fun.
Yeah, right?
Sure.
I mean, think about it, right? Like, what do they got to do? So if your keys are missing, or your pencil is gone, or I mean, I don't think it's beyond their capability, and I don't think it's beyond their, but I think that that's harmless fun, although losing your keys could be really expensive. So,
True. Well, I just
please
read
leave my keys alone.
a friend of mine, Shelley, is a medium, and she lives here in Michigan where I live. She just posted a bunch of her growing up stories on Facebook, and one of them was where the family had bought some new appliance, and I forgot what it was now, maybe a refrigerator or something like that. It was something that needed to be assembled or figured out, and they could not for the life of them figure out where the instructions were, because the instructions were right on the table, right? Where did they go? We don't know, right? So 6 months later, it's Christmas time, and they're pulling the ornaments out of the attic, and they open up the ornament box, which hasn't been touched. It's at the bottom of the pile. It hasn't been touched in a year. And they're going through it and like, oh, there's the instructions. Like, bored ghosts.
Right? I mean, and that I do believe that, but
Yep.
I don't find that to be evil. I find
Right.
it to be a pain in the ass, but
Right.
I don't find it to be evil. You know what I
I would
mean?
agree
Like,
with that. I would agree with that.
right? Like
It's humorous, it's goofy, it's annoying, but it's not. There's not a malevolent darkness to that.
right, exactly. That's more of a, and I think you might especially find it um in a person who was kind of like that when they were alive. you
Sure.
know
Yeah. Right.
right, like,
Right.
I mean, when you listen to mediums, or if you connect to people, which I know that you do, whether or not, to what extent you realize it at this moment,
Right.
that remains to be seen. I know that I do. I know other people that do. And one of the things you hear them say is, oh, that person was a real stitch, weren't they? Or,
Mhm.
oh, that person was really rigid and set in their ways, weren't they? And
Yeah.
so those are kind of imprints that I think stay with you. Um, but it is still the medium reading energy. So they're interpreting it with things that they recognize, right? So you're recognizing the human imprints of this energetic being that is the person on the other side. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Like,
Yeah. Hey, what do you think of the pretty common case of where someone's doing, ghost hunting, and the energy clearing person says, I need to send this spirit. Tell them you don't need to be here anymore. You can go back. You can go towards the light. Is that?
I believe that. I think that people can get stuck.
Yes.
I think that people can. I think people can get stuck. But what I think happens, that's a really like an interesting merry-go-round to get on, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think it, because how do I put it? I think there is a point at which maybe a medium can no longer communicate with a spirit. Like, for example, my mother died in 1975. She doesn't show up very often,
Yeah. It becomes less and
right?
less over
Oh,
our
right,
time. Yeah.
right. And I think it's because they get further and further away from the human experience.
Right.
And um, I don't really think the human experience is designed to really have much recall of the previous human experience, if that makes sense.
Right.
I mean, I think those things that you see where like a 4-year-old is a is a piano, a maestro, piano
Right.
maestro,
Yep.
or whatever. I think that is like a fluke. I don't want to make it sound like it's not important, but I don't think that's available to everybody. For whatever reason, the energetic vibrational state
Yeah.
is
I've
perfect
done
for
some
that,
reading on
right?
that actually.
Oh, okay. So you see.
Yep.
So um oh geez. I forgot what was the initial question again?
We were talking about like energy imprints and telling people to telling a spirit that's stuck to go
Oh,
home.
right.
And
To move on. So I mean, do you think that so what is my like experience with this? The show The Ghost Whisperer. Remember that show?
yeah, it's one of the
Jennifer
ones
Love
listed
Hewitt?
as those good, entertaining, and interesting ghost shows.
Yeah, because I think in my mind, although fiction, I think it's probably pretty close. Some of it is a little out there. Some of it I think is a little stretch,
Yeah.
but it's a TV show and it needs to be that way. But the idea that a person can pass and either there's some kind of trauma attached or it was sudden or they really left some serious unfinished
Right.
something.
Right. Right. I think
um
trauma is a big part of that.
I do. I think that trauma is a big part of it. And I think what happens is they go, they get to the other side. And if in fact they don't really know who they're looking for, the in the Akashic record work I do, it's called third order. That would be the souls that escort souls from one place to the next.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about there too. Because I believe that most mediums are actually third order souls incarnated. Makes sense if you
Wow,
think about
that's
it, right?
cool. Okay,
Yeah.
that's very cool.
So, yeah. So if they don't encounter that right away, or for they're traumatic, so their soul doesn't kick back in and say, "This is what you're supposed to do when you get here." Now they're kind of searching and seeking, and I think that the longer they stay in that state, that's when they begin to learn to interact with energy and to interact with
Hmm.
instruction booklets,
Right, right.
right?
Yep.
I mean, and they're looking for something to do. And then the poor people who have mediumship tendencies, but have been told it's not a good thing, all of a sudden, these people are like, knock, knock, knock. I
Like,
know you can see me. I know you can see me. I know you can.
right.
And they
I
get,
got a
and then all
message.
of a sudden, right. And they have all of a sudden, these people who don't understand what it's all about are afraid
Yeah.
because these ghosts are bothering them. But the truth of the matter is, you just carry a frequency that they're looking for,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So you have that, and then I think what happens is over time. Oh, this is good. I don't actually think this. This is what I'm being told. Anyway, over time, the more time they spend on the other side, they forget the reason they stayed.
Okay.
Like,
Right.
why did they stay behind? They were looking for this, they were looking for that. To them, time is not the same as it is to us,
Right.
right? Time is a human construct.
Yep.
So time can pass, like, oh, they were waiting to see their child be born. They were in an accident and waiting to see their child be born. All of a sudden, their child is now, a grandfather
Right.
and
Right.
waiting to pass on, and this person is still waiting.
Yep.
They don't really know why they were waiting anymore because the reason they're waiting has already passed.
Yeah. They're
But
stuck.
they're stuck because they don't know what to do. So
Yep.
I 100% agree that a person who is in that line for the right reasons
Hmm.
and not to sensationalize what's happening there, because I think that's what a lot of those shows tend to
Right.
want to
Right.
do.
Right. So they're performing a really good service.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. I believe that.
That reminds
I
me.
really believe that.
I think I was reading some famous medium's book. I think it was Long Island Medium, where she was talking about one of the clearings she did, and it was at this haunted, big mansion and there's like a restaurant in there, and she went in and was asked to come in to take care of the ghost problem, and she actually, helped it move on. but the owner of the restaurant was really angry because he wanted that ghost there to help him his business.
Now, you know what? I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you something. Now, I don't. Are you old enough to remember Joan Jett
Oh, absolutely.
and that movie that she made? Was it Michael J. Fox?
Oh, wow. Yes, I do remember her in a movie. What was the name of that?
I can't remember the name
Hang
of the
on, I'm
movie.
going to Google it.
Okay. I want to say
The Runaways.
Okay, that's good. So it was filmed here in Illinois, in Streamwood, at a
Really?
bar that I used to frequent. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I actually there, we had Groundhog's Day, right, in
Oh,
Woodstock.
no, the movie's The Light of Day.
Okay. Actually, it doesn't even matter. Because it's the bar I'm referencing. The bar that was in that movie was a place that I used to frequent.
Sweet.
And they had a stage in the back. And there was a ghost that was there. And I didn't really know too much about connecting with ghosts at the time, but I did see them from time to time. So there was a ghost that was there, and the ghost would do stuff like when the owner was cleaning up at night, the ghost would move the mop bucket, and so when the owner would walk out of the bathroom, he would trip over the mop bucket, stuff like that.
Yep.
And one day, I was walking out of the bathroom, and I turned my head towards the stage, which was dark, and I saw the ghost standing there. It was a guy. And I came up, and I sat down at the bar, and I was like, holy cow, I just saw the ghost. After that, the ghost never came back. And that guy was so mad at me. He was so angry. He was like, ever since you saw the ghost, he never came back. He's gone now. Nothing happens anymore. And I think he enjoyed that sort of interaction.
Sure, yeah,
with the bucket and yeah. So I mean,
that poor soul needed to move on. So
that's what I think, And so is there something inherent about somebody who can make those connections, naturally? I guess I can do it naturally. I mean, that's kind of what they tell me.
Right.
Is there something happening energetically that I'm not even aware of that, oh, look, so here's my energy, here's my soul speaking to your soul, my soul telling you time to move on and go on. And me, the human, is sort of removed from the situation.
Okay. Yep. I can see that.
I mean, I think that actually makes sense because I think we do things energetically that our humans aren't necessarily aware of. Dreams and things like that are evidence of that. So, yeah, I mean, interesting. I love talking about ghosts. Ain't it fun?
Me too.
Ain't it fun? So we don't have a ton. We're going back to our 40-20 thing. We're still going to film tarot times separately. But let's talk about something fun before we wind down.
Sure.
Have you ever seen a really great costume, or have you ever had a really great costume, or what's kind of, a favorite thing? I particularly love any costume that involves a person. Like when I was a kid, there was a costume where you would hold two really long like broomsticks, and they would put a sheet over it. Like you were in a bed, like you were in a hospital bed.
Yep. Okay.
Like
sure.
I like those kind of costumes where your head shows through, but it looks like you're a horse, or
right.
know what I'm talking about. Those, I love those kind of costumes.
Yep. I've always, the ones that amuse me are the puns.
I love that.
So there's
love that.
There's a guy with a military shoulder belt thing, and he's got cereal boxes all over it. Well, he's a serial killer. Yeah. Right.
I love that one.
One of my favorite ones was
dressed up like a big box of cereal and they're holding a butcher knife.
Yep. One of my favorite ones. This is going to date me, but it's mom and dad are both dressed up as bags of ice, and they're carrying their newborn ice baby.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Yep. So those are pretty good. Shoot, I was going to tell you something about a costume.
Oh,
Oh well,
I hate who
it'll come
knows
back
where
to
they
me.
go, right? Like
Yeah.
those float in and they float out. I do. I mean, I love costumes like that. I love little kids dressed up in crazy things, like dressed up like Woody or Buzz Lightyear or
Buzz
whatever.
Lightyear, yep. Harry Potter.
Yep, they're just so cute. The little kids. We don't see too many. Our driveways are long here. Not really long, but our driveways are long here, and I think we have a lot more kind of older people in our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are kids here, but we don't get too many.
Yep. Oh, I remember what I was going
But
to tell you. So one year, my wife and I went to a kind of uh, it was a kind of a techno party dance thing with like hundreds of people coming, and it was in one of the hotel ballrooms, and I dressed up as a cop. I actually bought a policeman uniform costume, but it was really well done. So I'm kind of hanging out doing my thing, and I need to go back and talk to one of the organizers at the front table. I had a question, and I went up there, and she turns around, she goes, right, and just totally freaks out. And I'm like, she goes, "That's a costume, isn't it?" I said, "Yes." She goes like, "Don't ever, ever wear that costume again."
wow.
Yeah, because apparently there's something to hide, and seeing a policeman looking right at you was very, very frightening for her. But
Yeah.
that was a funny moment.
Yeah, I don't know. It reminds me of all the time I spent around people who were either cops or they weren't. I mean, I did come up in suburbs of Chicago. We'll just leave it at that.
Right. Yep.
And it's Chicago, not Chicago. Okay.
Right. Chicago.
And real people who live here don't call it Chi-Town either. Just
No,
saying.
that's a touristy thing.
Yeah. So anyway. So wow, that was all. I can't believe how fast the time goes. I mean, we just have so much fun.
What a great time talking about Halloween and ghosts and good stuff.
I mean, and it didn't even involve not a single Three Musketeers bar or a Kit Kat. Or actually $100,000. I like $100,000 bars. Anyway, so folks, if you've listened this far, we really, really appreciate it. We'd love it if you click that like button and maybe hit the subscribe button so that you get notified and we show up in your feeds. That would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
If you have your own personal ghost story, please drop it in the comments and let us know, because we love this stuff. And who knows, maybe one day we'll share it on the show. Anyway, all right, we're gonna take off now, but we will see you in a few days for tarot time.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all have a wonderful evening or day or whatever, and enjoy your Halloween next week.
Happy
John,
Halloween.
thanks so much. I had a great time, and we will talk to y'all soon.